Hello, and welcome to the channel. We're the Lorcana Twins, and we are here to tell you about our latest experience at the Las Vegas DLC. But first, I know it's been a while since we've done a video, so we kind of wanted to go back to where we started with Lorcana, give you a little background about us. And so, yeah, why don't you take it away?
Yes, well, we were very passionate about this game even before it launched. We had seen information about when it was coming out at D23. We got very hyped on the game. We started following other content creators who, kept us abreast of all the developments in the game. And we just really thought this meshed with our love of TCGs, strategy games, and also the Disney IP.
Yeah, I would say this was our first paper TCG that we really dove full into, but we'd played Hearthstone on and off ever since it came out for almost a decade, so we felt like we had a lot of experience there. And I do think a lot of that has translated well into Lorcana, but yeah, when we learned of this game, we started following it for many months in advance of the release of the game. We started making content around it, and I feel like that really, kept us connected and really helped us pass the time as we waited for it to come out.
And then while we were still waiting for official events to be put on by Ravensburger, we did go to the Miami TCG tournament, the first one last October. So that was kind of the first big Lorcana tournament in paper. We met some nice content creators there, had some fun playing the game. Back in set one, at that time I played Amethyst Sapphire, and my brother did too.
Not so in the meta back then, but
it was a pretty fun deck, and we took it pretty far. I think I got 20-something place there, and so almost made day two with a deck that wasn't really, a top meta contender.
So yeah, that was our first introduction to a really large-scale Lorcana competitive event. And then I think where I first had my biggest success, there was an online tournament called the New Year's Tournament, and that was about 280 some people, and I did not expect to do super well, but I ended up winning the whole thing, and that was a big shock to me, but it was really satisfying too, because I know we put in a lot of time and effort studying the game and being excited about it and what have you. So that was really cool. And then you went on to also play second place in an online tournament not long after that. So that was really cool to see. And from then on, we just got more and more interested in competing at big events. And it was really cool because then, as we all know now, Ravensburger rolled out some official competitive circuit in the form of the DLCs, or the Disney Lorcana Challenges, which we're going to touch on a little bit here.
And also they had their set championships, which started in set 3 into the Inklands. So that was the first time you could compete for the set promo card, which at that time was the Rockstar Stitch. Very cool card, and also can go for those playmats as well when you're in those set championships. So
and that got us really excited because just you can't always travel to every big event out there, and so for anyone that can't do that, it's really great to have a local competition where you can get a feel for the competitive scene in your local area without going way out of your way, and still have a chance to win some really cool official prizing.
And we really love this game, and so for the first time we decided we would be willing to travel to big events. So when they started launching these DLCs, we've been to 3 of them so far, so it's been really fun traveling, just seeing different parts of the country and meeting a lot of people. And we'll talk more about how those have went for us throughout the rest of this video.
Yes, so with that, we will get into the most recent DLC that we attended, the Las Vegas DLC. And I will take it away with the deck that I played, and that would be Amber Steel, or Steel Song, as it's popularly called. I've just always really enjoyed playing this deck. It's really fun to pilot, I think. You can have some bricky hands where not everything's lining up, but when the deck's really singing, then it's just a blast to play. Maybe not so fun to be against, but let's see here. So for the list, I think a lot of this is pretty standard nowadays. The 4 Cinderella, she just seems to be one of the best one-drops you can run out if you're hoping to sing a removal song early. And then the Robin Hood always threatens that potential to shift up into the 5-cost Robin Hood. And then didn't choose to run any of the Daisy Duck, which is, a card that I did see a lot of other Amber Steel playing, and I will say in the mirror match, the Daisy Duck with 2 lore, she's the 1/4 for 1 cost. She ended up being very powerful, I thought, in the mirror. But so I would maybe consider running her in the future. But for this list, I played 3 Piglet because I was very worried about Red-Blue being very popular, and it was the most brought deck, as it turned out. And so that would just help you get early questing pressure when it can possibly quest for 3. And then Vanessa, I really like for the mirror, or really any match where you're hoping to sing a song. Just the idea to put Ursula Vanessa out on turn 2, and then threaten that you can sing Along Came Zeus any turn after that. I mean, that Along Came Zeus card can take out most plays, with a lot of characters just don't have more than 5 willpower until they get further into the game.
And it's another way to sing one of your 3-cost songs a turn early as
absolutely.
well, if you miss your Cinderella. So.
And then Smee, also, I mean, he for 2 costs, you get a 3/3 and 2 lore. Like, that just seems really very overstated compared to a lot of units, so it's already great there. Good questing pressure. And then, I mean, in the dream scenario, you can maybe quest him a couple turns, and then if they haven't removed him, heal him with Rapunzel and draw a couple more, and then you've got a full health Smee ready to go again. So, really good card for this list. And then Ariel, of course, 4 of her to help you find those songs that you need to keep your engine running. Now, Lawrence is in here. I think he's really good against non-steel decks, but even against steel decks. Like, if they can't put the full 4 damage into him, you can always threaten to heal him up with Rapunzel. And against decks that can't ping him, you're getting, again, kind of an overstated unit, a nice 4/4 that only costs 3, and he still threatens 2 lore. So great against, like, Ruby Amethyst, Ruby Sapphire, which, again, we thought would be very popular. And then Pete is up next. Played the full 4 copies. I think he was outstanding throughout the day. He also kind of ruined some of my games as well, so, a bit of a double-edged sword there, but a really cool new card from the new Shimmering Skies set. And just, I don't know, there was one game where maybe I'm at 16 lore, and I just play, 4 more lore to the board, including a Pete, and then say, you can't do any actions. And depending on the deck, if I knew it was the mirror match, I know there's, like, literally no way that they can remove my unexerted characters. Even if you have, like, a shifted Cinderella in play, you can't play a song to allow her ability to activate to challenge ready characters, so he can just lock an opponent out of a game. And there were times when it was used on me too, which I'll get into in a little bit, that again kind of sealed the deal for me. But great card. And then you have Prince Naveen, another phenomenal card from the new set. I think as good as the deck already was, it got so much better now with this card right here. Just the ability to on play, get this Singer 6, the quest for 2, and can cast a song immediately. Like, there were a lot of times where maybe you've got a Naveen in hand, and maybe you're in top deck mode, but the moment you hit a Whole New World, or Along Came Zeus, or anything that's worth playing, you can do it instantly. You don't have to wait. Sometimes maybe you run out an Ariel on 3, and she might get brawled right away, or smashed, or removed in some manner, and you don't get to sing that 5-cost song, and that can kind of interrupt your plans. But Naveen just lets you get right around that. So a great card for the deck. And then Rapunzel, of course, here at the full 4 copies, just the ability to draw up to 3 cards, and she's a 1/5 that quests for 2 herself, so that's pretty threatening. She can also sing Zeus if you need her to. And then Robin Hood, great against steel decks with his 6 willpower. Again, like, and then Along Came Zeus, doesn't take him out. I do think a lot of great players, they will find a way to remove him without triggering his ability that lets you draw off of him, but it can be hard for them to do for a while. And I also like, against aggressive decks where you're able to actually use them to challenge things off the board and still gain some lore at the same time. It kind of helps you shut them down while going toward your win condition. So I really like that. And at the top of the curve for the characters, we have 2 copies of Cinderella. She did seem pretty pivotal in some games, like against Steel. Obviously, she's great with her resist, and just the fact that she quests for 3, and that, they'll never know. Like, you might just have a little 1-cost Cinderella sitting on the board, and, just the threat that you might shift could make them use some removal on the little Cinderella, which, might protect some of your other characters then. And if they leave her alone, maybe you shift into this and start questing for 3, which can really close the game fast. So, very nice card to have. And then for the spell package, there was the Bare Necessities. Just one. I do think it's a very nice card, but I was having trouble finding room for everything I wanted, so I just went with the 1 copy. Just in case you ever, do a Whole New World, and maybe you don't have a Pete to say no actions, allowed next turn. Maybe you want to just see what they're working with, gives you that hand knowledge. Like, that can be really good, so there's one in there. Also nice to have an inkable song to be able to find off of Ariel. And then here's Let the Storm Rage On, ×4. I think that's just a great card, especially that synergizes well with the Cinderella. Strength of Raging Fire as well. And then Along Came Zeus, one of the, strongest, just point and click, deal 5 damage to any character. And sometimes to a location too. I know this deck doesn't really have rush, so it can be, hampered by location sometimes, but to be able to just put 5 on a location can help you clean them up. And A Whole New World is probably undoubtedly the most powerful spell or song or action in this deck. just allows you to refill your hand after you've played everything out to the board. And ideally you try to play your hand out so you hardly have any left, and do that faster than your opponent, and then refresh your hand and keep it going. Now the interesting card here that I did include was 3 copies of Sleepy's Flute, and I know right now there's been a lot of decks that chose to use a lantern instead. There's been decks in the past that have used Pride Lands, and some decks that aren't using any locations or items. But I was really expecting a lot of red-blue, and I wanted to feel like I had a way to close out games when I inevitably lose the board. And I ended up only facing one Ruby Sapphire deck throughout the whole day, which surprised me, but it did come in handy in that matchup, and I was able to at least split and go 1-1. So I was pleased with that. And then my first round, I was against a Ruby Amethyst, and this was also good for that matchup. And then there was one funny game where I was against Amber Steel in the mirror, and I'd got to 19 lore, but they had removed everything, and I had nothing in hand in terms of a flute, but I did have the song Let the Storm Rage On. And so my draw for turn was just a little Robin Hood, but I was at 19 and they were going to win the next turn, but I played Let the Storm Rage On, and it drew me into a flute for the win. So that was very satisfying as well. And it can just get you there sometimes when you've lost the board. So I liked having it in there. I'm not sure if I will use it again going forward, because there were other matchups, like let's say Emerald Amethyst, where I just wanted to play to the board every time. Would be my preference, make the board wider, play more characters, etc. So, but all in all, I think the deck functioned very well. I was able to go 3, 2, and 4. I had started out strong with a couple 2-0s, and then I drew against the red-blue. So I was sitting at 17 points after the first 3 rounds, and then I got 2-0'd, which was a little unfortunate, against Amethyst Steel, which surprised me, but it was very strong. And a lot of times they had clutch turns with Pete, where I was finally ready to start removing everything on board, and I had a lot of songs to do it, but I couldn't because of Pete. So it seemed like a strong option. And then I got 2-0'd by 1 mirror, and then I 2-0'd 2 other mirrors and drew with 1. But at the end, I ended 3, 2, and 4, so 33 points, and at least got to the maximum ticket threshold. I would have liked to get more points, obviously, but still I had a lot of fun playing, and my opponents were all very nice and very skilled. There's a lot of amazing players out there, so that made it fun. I do like a nice challenge. But now, that was the deck I played. Let's check out the deck you played.
Well, I played Emerald Amethyst, which has been a favorite of mine for a few sets now. It wasn't as good for me in set 4, just due to how popular Bucky and Diablo were. So I took a break from it then, but kind of happy that it's finding a decent spot now in the current meta. So I chose to play this version. I was on 4 Clarabelle. I really liked her against red-blue for breaking items on turn 3. Just taking out a quill that was just played, or sometimes taking out a popsicle before they can Hiram if you were going first, so they couldn't quite ramp to Hiram yet. The Pegasus, I had that in play just to kind of be annoying against decks that didn't have good answers to evasives, because I wanted to be tempoing out and have something to do every turn. So if you can just quest freely, that feels pretty nice. Another thing against red-blue that I like to do with the snake is if I had Clarabelle as my only turn 1, then you can pick her up on turn 2 with the snake, and then have her in hand as an option for breaking an item going forward. And then if you stick her on turn 3, you're only 2 turns away from shifting into the big Clarabelle. So that gives you some flexibility and might make them worry a little that they might need to find a turn to remove Clarabelle before the shift can happen. Bonsai was on 4 of that, just as a potential way to try to win faster into red-blue. I did think they would be a very popular deck that weekend, and I ended up playing 4 red-blues out of my 9 matches, so I was glad to have some Bonsai in there, but he wasn't always fast enough. So I'll touch more on how it performed later in that matchup, but I had 1 copy of Mother Gothel for the main event. I had tested it a little bit beforehand, and I originally had 2, but I wasn't loving it, and I thought, the use cases for it might be as kind of like a last resort to get rid of a big problem character. So I cut down to 1 just to make space for other things. Then I had 2 Sir Hiss, just another way to be evasive, to kind of like, if you played Pegasus into Sir Hiss against certain decks, that felt really nice if you can just kind of quest every turn. The 3 Strength also is good to counteract the Flynn Sisu type thing on turn 2. at least getting above the Flynn. And then the Ursula, 4 of her, very great against Amber Steel. Kind of like, definitely you need that card in that matchup.
Yeah, I always cringe whenever she would come down.
To try to have a fighting chance. You just can't let them get away with, playing whatever songs they have. So at least having hand knowledge and being able to take a song once in a while can really help. Then for Madam Mim Fox to do all the bouncing shenanigans that this deck loves. Especially, I love that into the Amber Steel as well. If you can, keep your 2-drop alive and use the Fox as a way to kind of trade out something that might have sung on a previous turn or quested. The Crab, I was really liking the Crab right now. A lot of times, even if you have to use your Pegasus to trade, or a Mother Gothel or Clarabelle or something like that, being able to swing for 4 damage and putting a 3/3 into play feels pretty good against most decks. Not very quick though for lore gain, so definitely not the best into red-blue. That was something I noticed throughout the day. I had one Ana in the deck, and I really like the flexibility of the different options you can use with Ana's abilities. Either giving a character +2 strength, or banishing a damaged character, or making your opponent discard a card. But throughout the day, I really did not find many times where the abilities did exactly what I was kind of hoping for. So I think the best use I ever got out of it was just playing it on turn 3 against red-blue as another way to quest for 2. And I think I got 1 quest off with it, and then they had ramped, a turn early, so they took it out with Maui. So I didn't love on as much as I hoped in this deck. I think it's really good in Emerald Steel, maybe even more so. But just something I wanted to try. Then I had 2 copies of Kit to kind of counteract aggro and maybe keep some singers off the board so they couldn't punish me as fast as they'd like. 3 Lyle, I really like the flexibility of kind of slowing down the aggro decks, and then especially into red-blue, just using Lyle on Hiram so he can't quest and draw cards. And same thing with Tamatoa in a late game scenario. It might buy you an extra turn or 2. Those kind of the best things there. And then against any Ruby deck, if you're really threatening the board and you put this down before a Be Prepared, at least your opponent might lose a bunch of lore in the process, and then that gives you more time to try to cross the finish line before they can catch up. For Goat, because he's the GOAT and everyone loves free lore when you're bouncing him in and out of your hand. I always like to keep him off the board if I can, like bounce him back and keep him safe, especially against decks with a lot of removal. But sometimes having that nice 4 strength is really good in the current meta. Like, there's less removal for a 4/3, especially against red decks. And then Merlin, definitely great for card draw.
The Rabbit.
Always a fan of Merlin Rabbit. Then Elsa, I had 3 copies of Elsa, and after playing, I would like to go up to 4, because I originally had 2, but I thought the effect was really strong at kind of picking apart boards once you've kind of done some hard work trading in the early game, and she can just kind of set up some trades your opponent wouldn't like you to have. So love the rush and the ability to exert an opposing character when you play Elsa. So I'm going to try to go up to 4 the next time I play this type of deck. Then the Ursula, the big shift version, love this in the matchup against Amber Steel. Just making them pay for their songs instead of singing is really nice, and the 7 willpower makes this hard to remove. It was also pretty good against the 1 Emerald Steel deck that I played, because they were on a lot of songs as well, and so I had 2 of this in play, and that really shut them out of one of those games. Then 3 copies of the Shift Clarabelle. I really enjoyed. There were some games where that just totally got me across the finish line, because my hand's about gone, but my opponent, might be playing like red-blue and drawing a bunch of cards, and then I get to just draw back up to their hand size as well. And since I was being more aggressive, I was closer to the win, so I just needed to find some goats, find some bounce to kind of finish it off before they could shut me out.
Yeah, she seems like a definite upgrade to this type of deck. Very cool new card.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Clarabelle. And then 4 friends on the other side, because everyone likes to have some friends and draw some cards. And then for day 1, I did use You're Welcome, 2 copies of that, and I thought it'd be nice to have a way that you could remove something if you needed to as kind of a panic button. I don't love that it gives your opponent 2 cards, but sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes you just need to keep their board clear. But throughout the day, I think I used it on my own characters more often than on the opponent. So, I was just kind of fishing for some more cards to try to help me close the game. Didn't really love it. I think it's a good card. It didn't do as much as I had hoped it would do. But so my performance, I went 44 points. I had 5 wins, 1 loss, and 3 draws. So I started out decent. I was against Red Blue, and I was able to 2-0 that. They played very well, but I was just able to go slightly more aggressive. Then I had a pretty fun hyper aggro matchup in round 2. I was against Amber Amethyst, and I didn't know at the time what I was going to be against, but I was kind of worried that I didn't have any 1-drops in hand, and then they were going first, and their first turn was a Maleficent. The 1 cost for 2 lore, and I was like, oh dear, this is probably going to be a rough game. I was able to try to stabilize with Lyle and Elsa's. Got them to they were at 16 lore, but then they used a couple Chromicons, the Amethyst one, and were able to draw into 2 of the gapping knowledge and wisdom. So they went from 16 to 20. It was a pretty fast paced game, and it was fun. And then I did win the second game of that, so I drew in round 2, and then from there I had a few successful rounds where I 2-0'd, so I was feeling pretty good. And then I think it was round 6, I played against Rob from the Forbidden Mountain, and he was on an Emerald Amber discard deck, and I really despise playing against discard decks, but it was one of the funnest matches of the day, even despite that. We just had really good gameplay back and forth with each other, and kept it pretty exciting. And we each got a game, and they were both right down to the wire. I mean, either one of us could have won either of those games, so it was fun. And then after that, I played my 1 time against the mirror match, so I only saw Emerald Amethyst once during those 9 rounds. Was able to 2-0 that one, and then I hit the biggest snag, though, in about round 7, and that was a Red Blue. It was my 3rd one of the day, and for the first time, I had 2-0'd all of the 2 Red Blues up to this point. But this player 2-0'd me, and it felt pretty hopeless. They had an early hire in both games and just saw a bunch of cards, and I had very unaggressive lines of play that my characters were requesting for 1, and it just didn't go anywhere. So
they are the late game deck.
So yeah, they shut me out, and then at that point I needed to 2-0 rounds 8 and 9 to get to day 2. So round 8 was the first Amber Steel matchup that I had of the day, and my opponent got very unlucky in the first game because they got kind of stuck on 3 ink for multiple turns, and I was able to bounce my Ursula, the 2-drop, 3 times, and I took 3 whole new worlds right before they could get to their 4th ink, and they had a Naveen in hand that was going to sing that whole new world. So as soon as I got the 3rd copy out of the hand, I felt like that game was going to go my way. And then the first game I had went first and just kind of aggroed out, and it went well. So I was able to 2-0 that. So going into the final round, I knew I could make day 2 if I 2-0'd.
So were you feeling really a lot of pressure at that point, or were you really just excited to be still in contention?
I was just kind of excited, and I felt like, me and my opponent had both worked hard all day to get there. So I felt like, none of us deserved it more than the other, and whatever happened, I was going to be fine with. So we played the first game, and it was Red Blue again, so this was my 4th time. And at that point, having just lost to it 2-0 2 rounds prior, I wasn't thrilled about the matchup, but I was able to win the first game pretty closely, and I didn't think I was going to get there. And I actually was going second, so going first for game 2, knowing I'm still in this, felt good, but then my hand, I just did not find any of my aggro cards. I think I missed a 1-drop, and then I had a 2-drop Ursula that really didn't get any effect, and then I played a crab, and it was just so slow. And then they CC'd my board at some point. I lost everything, and then I think they played 2 or 3 Maleficent Dragons towards the end of the game and just completely shut me out of it. So I did not make day 2. I missed it by 1 game, but it was a ton of fun, and I did get the Let It Go promo, so I have nothing but positive thoughts about the experience overall. And I just love this deck. I think it's very fun to, it's got a lot of different things it can do, and I think that keeps it interesting.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun to me too, and I definitely want to give it a try, maybe for a set champ coming up. But yeah, so that was day 1, and then we had each got at least the maximum number of tickets we could from that. So we thought at this point, maybe we should try to earn a Cindy mat, or ideally, if we could each earn a Cindy mat, would be great. So we went into day 2 trying to do the competitive constructed side of that.
And that was at 8 a.m.?
Yep. So I decided to try out this Amethyst Steel deck. It it was quite a bit different from the deck I'd played the previous day, but trying to be really aggressive with a lot of one drops. And I had actually ran into Dick Burns from the Forbidden Mountain. I played him in round 7, and we had each split that round, and it was a lot of fun. But he was on a list similar to this. I really like their list better now that I've seen that revealed in one of their videos. But it was similar, and it inspired me to try this out the next day. And I'd only brought this deck and one other one to Vegas, so I was kind of stuck with that anyway. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I liked being able to run out Maleficent on turn 1 if I saw her. Otherwise, any of these other one drops. I'm a huge fan of Pascal ever since set 1. I think it's a very cool card, and if you can always keep something in play in addition to the Pascal and they don't have a way to deal with evasives, like it can just quest right under them for quite a long time and get you a lot of lore. So that's really fun. It still has like some good statted things too, like the Smee, the Madam Mim Snake, even the Doc. Like a lot of these characters have 3 willpower or more once you start getting to that 2 drop. So I think that can actually, although it looks like you're playing a lot of weenies, like that can actually get you in a decent spot against some steel decks, at least for a little while. And then the Fox to bounce things back and can also rush things down. Lawrence, again, I think it's great in here as well. It's kind of an aggressive card, but with great stats. If they have to trade into it, you're at least slowing them down too. And then Pete really does a lot of work in this deck, protecting your low-cost things from all the pesky little removal spells that might be coming down otherwise. And then Merlin Goat, again, for that instant lore gain. I think it's really cool to be able to use Befuddle and Fire the Cannons in this deck as well. Some set 1 cards that don't see a ton of play.
It's pretty efficient
in a lot
for
of decks,
one
but
cost removal.
yeah, I think one of the funnest plays is like having a Maleficent on turn 1, and then maybe they run out like a 1 drop that has 2 willpower less, and you can just ideally fire the cannons. Or sometimes maybe they'll play a 1 drop and then they'll pick it up with a snake, and then you can just befuddle the snake back to hand, and all of a sudden they haven't played anything almost for like their first 2 turns essentially. And meanwhile, you're just questing out with everything, trying to get as wide as you can and do enough like early lore damage before they take over the board at some point. And then at that point, you can try to finish with Merlin Goats and Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, which is, a new card from this set. Just who doesn't want to gain 2 lore for 2 ink? And then the library, I think, was a very fun location. I mean, if you're dropping it right on curve, for 3 ink, all of a sudden you have a 1/8 location sitting there. It's going to get you a lore every turn. And with all these cheap characters to play, you can just, move a bunch of them there. And then if they banish your characters, you're drawing cards. And sometimes, like, I would force the issue where, they have to exert and challenge into some of my stuff to try to slow me down. But then I can move other characters into the library and then finish some of theirs off that value traded me and then draw cards at the same time. And also then protect the library from the damage that their surviving characters would otherwise have been able to do. So I think that's a cool card for this deck too. And I probably would have ran 4 of that, but I only had brought 3 to Vegas, 3 copies. So I ended up borrowing a copy of the Queen's Castle from you to round it out. And that did come in handy in one of the games for sure. But all in all, I think it was another 2-game format event. And I ended up drawing all 4 of the first rounds, which I don't know. It was fun. I think like with a 3rd game, it would have been interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, I was usually winning on the play, and then on the draw, not as much. There was one match against Red Blue, which I thought would maybe go okay, but I did have a really slow, not very aggressive draw when they were on the play. So it didn't quite pan out, but all in all, I think it was a lot of fun to play. And yeah, I think with maybe a few tweaks to the list, could be fine. I did test it out later in a smaller constructed event for 3 rounds, and it went very well there, but we'll maybe get to that in a little bit. But yeah, that's what I played, and after the 4 rounds, I decided to try to get into a sealed event instead and just cheer you on from the sidelines. So take it away with your deck.
So as you can see, I played Emerald Amethyst again. I really didn't bring too many other options to Vegas, but I had a pile of some different Emerald Amethyst cards in case I wanted to tweak my main deck a little bit. And one thing I noticed on the first day was there were many games where I just could not find a 1-drop, even though there were 8 in my first version. And that was something I just didn't want to happen when I was playing kind of a tempo-oriented style. So I ended up actually adding 3 1-drops to the deck. I went with 1 Cursed Merfolk. I didn't want to add too many more Uninkables to the list, and so I didn't want to go crazy there, but I like the Chernabog Follower's stat line as well, and the ability to draw cards a little bit when you need to, so I put in 2 of that. And then what I took out was that 1 copy of Mother Gothel, and I took out the 1 Anna so that I could put in the Merfolk and kind of keep the Uninkables the same. I did also take out the 2 Year Welcomes, just because they had not had as much impact as I had hoped on day 1. And then other than that, I went up on 1 Sir Hiss because I really was liking just sticking a nice 3 strength evasive unit on turn 2 if I didn't find a bonsai, because you don't always want to pick up your 1-drop with Snake, and Ursula's nice, but there's some matchups she's not great in, and you can be a little more aggressive with Sir Hiss, and he can make trades that Ursula can't. So otherwise the list was very, very similar. I really only changed 4 cards around. But this let me play a little lower to the ground with more 1-drops and slightly better quality 2-drops, maybe you could say. And overall, this was an 8-round event. It went pretty well. I ended up going 4 2-0s and then 4 draws. So I ended 6th out of 247, and that was enough tickets for, I think it was like 90 tickets, and the Cinderella playmat is 70. So that was very nice to get that amount.
The Cinderella mat's 90, but...
Oh, yeah, 90.
But yeah, with the 20 you'd gotten from day 1, that was enough.
Yep. And so there were a couple things I learned throughout the day, little mistakes that I made here and there that maybe could have helped me do better. But I was very, very pleased with 6th. I didn't expect, to get that kind of a result. And again, it just kind of showed to me like this deck is really fun and flexible and kind of has decent game into a lot of things. But yeah, overall, like the number of times I played red-blue throughout the tournament, I felt like that really seemed to be, like I'd say I won about 50% of the time in my game, or maybe it was more like 55% of the time. But when I lost, it usually felt like pretty bad. And if I won, sometimes I thought it was, just inching across the finish line at the end. So surprisingly, like, I think this deck would need to be tweaked to be even more aggressive to try to feel better into that matchup. But
yeah, because looking at it here, there's not a lot of characters that quest for 2 or more until you get to the really late games.
Yep,
so.
And by the time you get to your Ursula, your Clarabelle, they've probably ramped to a Be Prepared or some other forms of removal. And the Dragons are pretty good against you if your board, if your like small things have been cleared off by Sisu, and then if they just kind of do single target removal from there, it can feel kind of oppressive. But it does have some tools to try to out resource the red blue as long as they don't get like too many Hyrims going crazy. So
yeah, and as we saw, the DLC in Birmingham had a deck of this color combination that took 2nd place, so that was very well done, and it definitely has some legs in this meta, I would say.
Yeah, so it felt like a very successful day, and we really wanted to get a Cinderella playmat, and we were hoping to get 2. So after this tournament was done, we played in another smaller tournament at the end of the day that was 3 rounds, and then we also you did a side
I did a
event.
sealed, so I guess I'll just mention that briefly. That was fun. We got to open 6 packs and just make a deck out of whatever we got, and at first I wasn't sure if I was opening too many amazing hits or anything, but I did get some good ones, like the Evasive Zazu came in clutch, and just a lot of other value cards. 2 You're Welcome for removal, or I actually use it to draw cards, which in a limited format ended up being very strong. But I think my most satisfying play happened with this Gaston card here. I had put out a 1-drop on turn 1, and then I had 2 1-drops on turn 2, and the opponent had played the Daisy Duck, the 1/4, and then quested with it. So I was able to run all 3 of my 1-drops into the Daisy, and they all survived. And then I was able to play Gaston for 3 ink on turn 3, and it just seemed pretty crazy. Like, probably wouldn't, I was surprised that lined up so well. And then I just thought it was kind of funny because I also had managed to open a Maximus card, and he was in my hand. So I thought if Gaston would survive until turn 6, then he could also start getting 5 lore a turn. But my Gaston was challenged and removed before that happened, but it didn't matter. I ended up going 3-0, which was what I was hoping to try to do. I wasn't expecting my first round opponent really got me in game one, and they had the Emerald Chromacon, and that seemed really crazy good in that match. But I was able to claw it out in games 2 and 3, and then win the next 2 rounds as well. But that was a lot of fun. I think just getting to play with cards that don't see a lot of play normally in like regular constructed, and yeah, just get to try to use your brain to try to make a deck on the fly with whatever you got. I think that was fun, and you never know what the opponent's going to have either, and getting to play any ink color together. So yeah, because I was able to do that, then we were getting close to being able to earn, a second Cindy Mat if we combined all our tickets. So we entered one last constructed event, just a 3-rounder, and we ran back our decks from day 2 because that's all I had brought as well that day. And this time I was able to get 2-2-0s with or a 2-1 and a 2-0 with the Amethyst Steel, and then I did fall 1-2 to Steel Song in the first round, but that was still worth 12 tickets, I'd say. And then
I did manage to 3-0, but some of my matches, I think 2 of them were 2-1s, and I was on the play, like I won the die roll in all of my matches, so that definitely helped. Because when Amber Steel's going first, it feels very bad sometimes, and so I feel like it could have went differently if I wasn't on the play 2 of the 3 games.
Yeah, and that's a big difference from the 2-game format to the best of 3. It's like when you roll the dice and you really care more about the result. I mean, I know it's totally possible and fine to win, going second as well, and it happens a lot. I mean, every 2-0 means you won going second as well. So, but I would always, probably prefer to go first if I could. Just, why not? Unless, maybe there's some edge case where you might want to go second, but I think generally
some decks are decent, like playing reactionary.
Sure.
But yeah, in general, going first gives you better tempo. So
yeah, in the end, we were able to just barely scrape enough tickets together to get another mat. So we each walked away with a nice one of these, and
we did. We were pretty excited about that.
That was fun, and then we had a blast meeting so many people there, people we met before or talked to, online, or people that we were just meeting for the first time. And really cool as well that they had a viewing area set up where you could watch the featured matches going on. So we saw, a lot of matches that Zan played. It was very good to see, and other players as well. I know Zach Bivens was on there day 2. He had a phenomenal day 1, going undefeated on Emerald Steel, which that was a deck that a lot of the top players seemed to be playing that day, and a lot of them came out on top and made day 2. So
I'd say
that was really cool to see.
Each DLC we've been to, it just feels like it's getting better and better in terms of just how streamlined and efficient everything is being run, and the quality of the setups and the stream that they had was really nice to see. And yeah, it was just a well-run event, and everything about it was great.
Yep. So then with that, we will just briefly touch on the first 2 DLCs we attended. We went to Atlanta, and that was where I performed the best, I guess. I managed 40 points so far. That's as much as I've gotten. But so just 1 game off of a Let It Go, I think, and maybe 2 off of day 2. But I played Emerald Amethyst, and back then in set 3, it was a lot more of an aggressive build that we were playing. So it was, different, not hugely statted units, no Clarabelle or anything to draw you a bunch of cards in the late game, and the Shift Ursula was not out yet either at the time. But yeah, just trying to go under a lot of decks with Curse Merfolk and the Flynn line, and then some other evasives, and it was a fun deck.
I played the same colors, Emerald Amethyst, and I was able to, I think I got 44 or 45 points. It was the same amount of points that qualified for day 2, but my tiebreakers weren't good enough, so I did not make day 2, but I did get the Let It Go, so I was very pleased with that for our first time ever going to one of these DLCs, and
yep.
It felt like a really good time.
And then at the second one we went to Chicago, and I decided to play Sapphire Steel for this one. I played it a lot in set 3, at a lot of some of those set champs, and then with the introduction of the Fortisphere in set 4, which DLC Chicago was in the set 4 meta, that just seemed to make the deck that much more consistent and was pretty popular at the time. I will say I had probably 6 or 7 draws, so that was a bit rough, and it felt good not getting too old much, but getting that many draws just wasn't worth many points either. So I mean, I really like the deck and think it's fun to play. But yeah, it didn't go super hot for me, but it was a good time.
And I was not a fan of the set 4 meta, and in the hotel room the night before the event, I just could not decide on a deck, and I knew that, Amber Ruby was very unfavored into the Bucky Diablo Emerald Steel discard deck. But despite that, I just decided I don't really like anything right now, so I'm going to play, Mufasa with Amber Ruby and just hope it goes well. And I did end up facing 2 Emerald Steels in day 1 and was able to 2-0 the first one. I think they just got really unlucky draws. They were top decking a lot of 1-drop characters that don't do anything. And then the second opponent was actually someone that I play against locally sometimes when I travel for set championships. And, we had a great match. We ended up splitting with each other. And so that was a lot of fun just playing against someone that I knew personally. But after 7 rounds, I had enough points to kind of lock in a day 2. So that it just went way better than I expected. Mufasa was so much fun. And, sometimes I know one of my favorite plays was being at 14 lore, and then my opponent had to be prepared, and I had 2 Mufasas, and it put out a Flynn Rider and a Rapunzel, and so when my turn started, I just got 3 lore off Flynn and then quested for 3 to close the game. So that felt like a really fun kind of way to finish it off, and that was actually the match that let me draw into the day 2. So it was a great time. However, day 2, I right away got matched into Emerald Steel discard again, and this player knew exactly what they were doing into my matchup, and they removed my Gaston right when I played it on turn 3 both times, and Gaston was really my only chance to kind of ramp out to something big that could remove their Diablo, and both games I just got really blown off the table pretty quickly, and it was kind of like a little bit of a letdown after, fighting really hard to get there and then just being shut out so quickly. But overall, it was just great to have that experience and kind of see what day 2 procedures looked like. So, and the Chicago venue was awesome. It was nice being right in the hotel where we were staying to be able to just wake up and walk, to the conference area and play with all the other players and yeah, we've met a lot of people by traveling to these events, and it's fun every time you go to another one again to kind of see who's there this time, and
yeah, I think it's amazing to see how passionate people are for the game and that they keep traveling to all these things. I love seeing people at multiple of these, and I know there's we've been to 3 out of the 6 that there will have been, I guess. But so far there's been 5, at least in this continent. And, some people have been to all 5, and I think that's really cool. And then, hopefully people that, want to attend are able to attend. I know some of these, they sell out really fast. And, yeah, we've missed some that we've tried to get. But, I guess it is what it is. But hopefully, sometime anyone that wants to can attend these. And
yeah, I think Seattle's coming up maybe in 3.5 weekends or something like that from
Yep.
now, and that's one we were trying to go to, but we weren't able to get tickets. But that's fine. We'll just enjoy kind of watching from afar and see
Yep.
what's going on there.
Yeah, so that's been our history at the DLCs so far. But then we wanted to touch on what is waiting, just around the river bend for people on the Lorcana horizon, what's coming up next. And I guess for us, it'll be set championships. It's October now, so just this weekend, in, I want to say 3 days, 3 days, we'll have our first set championship. At this point, we've planned to do at least 4, so we're signed up for 2 on the first weekend, and then
I think we're signed up for 5.
we're signed
actually.
up for 2 more that are in our local area, and then maybe a 5th as well. We'll see.
But we just love to play and compete. It's so much fun. So I mean, we might even sign up for more. It just depends, kind of how the first ones go. And I know for the Stitch championships, we played in 5 of those, and we were able to. I walked away with 3 Stitches. It was a lot of fun just kind of seeing what the competitive level was going to be at that point, because it was really our first time doing multiple rounds of competition for this game outside of the online environment prior to the official tournaments beginning.
Now, I might not have a Stitch card yet, but I do have this little Stitch plush right here. But
that's even better.
I did make top 8. I want to say 3 of the 5 events that we went to for the Stitch events, and one of them I ran into my brother here, and we were both on Sapphire Steel, and I think you just had one too many Cogsworths for me to handle.
I did have quite the Cogsworth army.
Another time I was also in a mirror match in the top 8. It was against Jeebus, who maybe you've heard of, a very great Lorcana player, also content creator, did some streaming in the past. He also was on the Sapphire Steel, and I think I went 1-2 against him there, so didn't quite get there. Just there's been a lot of close, but just, not quiets for me there on that regard.
Yeah, you've made top 8 a lot, and then just that getting to top 4 has proven difficult, or a bit unlucky, I would say.
Well, so I guess with the new way that they're going to do it, where top 8 gets a promo, maybe I'll be a little more successful there this weekend. We'll see. We can hope.
I think we did 4 of the Ursula set championships.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't love the meta for set 4, so I wasn't as excited about those. And I just didn't know what to play, really. And I wasn't confident in the Mufasa deck again at this point, so I think I tried some Amethyst Steel a little bit and some Emerald Amethyst. I got close a couple times to top 8ing and didn't make it, and then there were 2 times where I was able to get top 4, so I did get 2 Ursulas.
And I believe I top 8'd 3 of the 4 we did, and then again I remained victoryless in the top 8 rounds, so I gotta shake that curse, I think. But
I think these next round of set champs are gonna be your time to shine.
We'll
and
see.
Mirabelle, she's looking like quite a nice prize for this round. I know a lot of people don't think she's maybe meta relevant, but I love the art on this one. I think it's just really interesting. I love the shining butterflies, and with the foiling from the Shimmering Skies, the way they do their enchantments, I think this is going to look very cool.
And I think it's cool whether you play with these enchantments or you just want to admire them.
Just a great one for the collection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a nice commemoration of the events you played in, or a nice souvenir from those, and reminds you of the set that you were competing in and whatnot. I think outside of the first reward here, the Stitch, like these other ones are all from the set that the championship is in, so yeah, a good reminder of that. And I'll definitely be trying to win one myself. So, and then the mats are really cool too. I mean, if you can top 2, that's impressive.
It is.
Yeah, so that's probably what's on the horizon for us. I'm curious to hear what any of you viewers are planning to play for these set champs. How many of them you're planning to do, how it goes, and then I guess outside of the set champs, the Seattle DLC is on the horizon. And yeah, we're on the wait list and probably won't be attending at this point, but like you said earlier, we are very excited to, watch from afar everyone who does go and see if the meta seems similar to Las Vegas, or, if people really innovate in between now and then and mix it up. That'll be really cool to see. And then we are also very interested to learn about the Continental Championship and what that will entail, and who can go, whether you've qualified or not, and how the last chance qualifier will work, because that is something that we would kind of like to do, and we've never been to Disneyland, so when we heard it was there, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we love Disney World, but we've never gotten across to Disneyland, so we're open for a trip. So.
Right. Well, that's just kind of our thoughts there. I'm not sure what I'm going to be playing at the set champs. Again, it's always hard for me to decide on a deck until kind of last minute, but...
Yeah, I'm very indecisive as well, and so, but the nice thing about doing multiple set championships is that, if it didn't go well one time, or you just want to try something new or try something fun, you can always switch it up.
Yep. So yeah, thank you for that, for watching, and
it's been good catching us back up to speed here, kind of on what we've been doing, and we'll probably make content a lot more frequently going forward. We're really into this game, and we just want to share our passion for it with everyone else, and just kind of document our experiences with this game, and just kind of keep in touch. So.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed the vibe, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. And other than that, best of luck to you all in any set champs you're playing in. And, until next time, happy questing.